everyone, welcome and thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Hannah Flew and I'm a Sales Solution Consultant at Enovation, Ireland's leading Moodle partner. Now that we have that out of the way, I'd like to start the discussion of accessibility and what it means to be accessible. You may be wondering why we're looking at a rugby match. Well, what if I said, this looked like this to 1 in 12 men watching? And that is why we are here today. Not everyone sees things in the same way or at the same time. Sometimes it's obvious, but more often than not, you wouldn't necessarily know there was an issue. So this is what I would really like you to take home today. That we can all suffer due to barriers, and that is what we all need to recognise. Some barriers are obvious, others are not. Some are permanent, some are situational, and some are temporary. So today, some of the areas I will be discussing are how to make your content accessible and the positive impact of accessibility for everyone. So types of limitations such as temporary or transient disabilities as well as permanent. How it's transforming your learning management systems and content in just a few clicks. For instance, I have contact lenses which don't fully correct my astigmatism, so often I have issues with sight such as text being too small or dark, or perceiving images completely differently to how they actually are, which is a bit of a problem. So really what we need to do is remove barriers to make your content as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. You may have assumed your content is accessible to everyone, or maybe didn't consider it at all, and that's absolutely fine. But what we can do now to improve is we can equip you with what you need to know to how to make your content as accessible as possible to a wider audience. So there are 5 main areas I would like to go over with you, and that's it, just 5. And from here, you'll be able to see that these small considerations will make the world a much better place for everyone. So the first one is physical. This can be surprisingly broad. There are many situations where dexterity can be limited. Some temporary, some not. So trying to use a mouse when you have something such as multiple sclerosis, arthritis, sprains, or even a toddler in your arm, or in my case, a cat or dog up on my arm when I'm working from home. Keyboard navigation can suddenly become a lifesaver. And the next one is vision, which I briefly touched on myself. So this is where we need to consider the style of font, text sizing, color contrast, and overall the ability to zoom in and out. Vision can be an issue for many people permanently, but many of us are situationally impaired, such as summer glare when summer is coming in through the windows. So the next is speech. Do you have a phone or call now only option? If someone is deaf or mute, this can definitely cause a lot of problems. The barriers large of these can be overcome with a simple addition of another contact method. So some sort of email or chat option is very easy to add in. So it's something I would like you to consider, purely because I haven't experienced it myself, but I'm sure there are many people with this issue. Even though you may have not thought of it or you've come across it in your own life, but if you think about it, it's such a small thing you can do that'll make it much easier for other people. And the next one is auditory. Audio or video files do need captions, translation, or a transcript. This can assist those speaking in a secondary language, as well as those with auditory impairments. But also, how many times have you been in a noisy environment, like on a plane, so you couldn't hear your show? Now, I often download Netflix, so I will use that on the airplane, and it's very, very helpful. But you also may have put your baby down to sleep, or perhaps you share your accommodation and you don't want to wake your flatmate. So you don't really want to make any sounds at all, so captions really come in handy here. This is something interesting happening these days as well. I was working in the schools the last few years, and I've noticed that teens, and a huge proportion of them, use captions for TikTok and Netflix and Instagram. So according to Netflix, more than 80% of members use subtitles or closed captions at least once a month, with many of them reporting that they use the dubs and subtitles to learn other languages. So also with Netflix, this is a very handy feature that they've brought in that allows a viewer to speed up or slow down the show that they are watching. The decreased speeds are very useful for those with impaired hearing or vision, allowing them more time to read subtitles or listen to the audio. This option is also beneficial for those who would like to watch films in a different language. And I am actually currently trying to learn Spanish, so it's actually very helpful. The decreased speed will allow me to read the subtitles in Spanish and help me to practice and understand. Slowing down the audio will also give me more time to translate them while I'm watching, though it doesn't always work, but at least I'm trying. So next we have the cognitive and neurological. So what we can do there is we can really improve our UX and our UI. So that is where it really comes into play. So in terms of clean design and enabling users to see what they read, trying to put too much content in one place makes it very hard for me and other users to navigate and for them to find what they're looking for. Which I can understand the thought process, because sometimes you want to have all your information there for your audience, but sometimes it's a bit too much. Readers can find it hard to organize. So cognitive disabilities will be especially challenged while there is too much to take in. So keep text minimized and lessons and sites in small chunks for them. The content needs to be easy for everyone to understand and digest. So the smaller bites and pieces of information will enable better focus and easier navigation. Now let's take a look at some of the numbers in Ireland. Now these really might shock you. So around about 400,000 people have hearing impairments, 500,000 people have dyslexia, 250,000 people have ADHD or attention deficit disorder, and 275,000 have visual impairments. And these are just the diagnosed ones. Many people have impairments or barriers are undiagnosed. So either they have found workarounds or climbing up and around these barriers. So let's change that just a little bit right now. But what can you do? It's a lot of work, right? Well, not necessarily. Here are 8 things you can implement right now at this moment while you're listening to me, or maybe half listening to me. So first of all, this font. It's best to avoid italics or fancy script styles. Keep everything nice, clear and plain without serifs. On the average laptop, you say you can use size 14 and above. Try and avoid all caps because it looks like you're shouting at others basically. So keep it simple. Some of the most accessible fonts are Tahoma, Verdana, Calibri, Helvetica and Arial. My personal favourite is Calibri. I just love that one for some reason. So next we'll move on to structure. Now this is where I struggle a bit, but a draft or two will help you sort that out. So keeping your content logical and sequential. Use headings for each section and use titles for each topic. This keeps layout clear and easy to scan. So when topics are changing, it improves cognitive recognition. So use different text sizes for different levels of headings to make it easier. Tagging text with corrected styles, for example, heading 1, heading 2, is important for assistive technology. Screen readers will recognize these tags and communicate these changes to the user. Next, we'll have inclusive language. Try and use clear, plain language by avoiding using industry-specific terminology and using acronyms. I find many people assume a bit too much, especially when it comes to acronyms, assuming people will understand them. For instance, do you know what any of these are? TLDR, IYKWM, YLO, JFGI. Do you recognize any of these? I'll tell you the answers at the end. So next we have image, text and contrast. Vision impaired learners struggle to read text without a strong contrast. Clear distinctions in colour between fonts and backgrounds and key navigation elements. This is where I really struggle. So consider menu buttons and clickable items and elements that need to stand out clearly. Try not to make navigation colour dependent by distinguishing the text or obvious symbols. Use colour and texture for easy differentiation of data on graphs and ease of legibility and understanding. So next we're moving on to describing visual elements. Make them easy to understand, including alternate text description or voiceovers for videos, infographics, photos and animations that are crucial to learning. For video, helpful animations can include commentary in the script that describes what's happening. If using infographics, add alternative text. Give a written summary for screen readers. This is a very basic example here. Now, one of the most exciting technological advances, and what went down in history that no one really expected, was a spectacular alternative text from NASA, which is actually 128 words long. So now I would like to move on to links. There are a few things here which I feel if I mention them, you will think to yourself, oh, that actually is kind of annoying. So featuring alternative routes, explanations, information and media is very helpful. So small things like being notified if a link will open in a new window or a new tab is really quite a bugbear for many. I've often helped some of my elderly neighbours with this, but they can't get back to where they originally were. So personally I like when a new one is opened myself, but I can understand how frustrating this might be if you didn't want to end up there. And navigating your way back can be difficult for a lot of people. So naming the site instead of leaving a full address is also very useful, because you need to know whether or not you want to click on that link. And remember, each link is unique and should be understood what it is for before clicking. So ensuring adequate colour contrast on the link is also very important. So next we have captions and transcripts. It's very important you give alternative text formats to audio and video content. Ensuring audio and video media have closed captions or transcripts, or a media variety, as you may already know, will help keep different learner styles engaged with that content. So these will help the deaf and the hard of hearing as well. And having translations for different language speakers, which again will broaden your audience. So inclusivity for different language speakers and for those who aren't primarily auditory learners. So the range there of use for that. There are many AI generators available to automatically caption every type of content. So there's really no excuse not to adopt this to make your own content more accessible. And finally, we're at tip number 8 already. Wasn't that easy? So, navigation. For those with mobility issues, the mouse can be an obstacle. When mouse action is required, it should be labelled and spaced. So using alternative keyboard shortcuts is a big deal, but not hard to implement. There are many ways one can navigate the user interface with a keyboard. For instance, using the tab and arrow keys to navigate through the interface and move focus. Depending on your learner's devices and software, most users can also press Alt to activate these keyboard shortcuts. So things like drag and drop quizzes and media content can be fun and engaging, but not if you can't participate. I have to say I would find it very disheartening and unfair if I could not join in. For e-learning, what existing learning management systems accessibility features are there? So learning management systems, or LMSs, include technology for making content and navigation accessible and integrating with assistive technology. So look for features such as automatic requests for alternative text, descriptions on all images, built-in video captioning that lets you upload a prepared caption file or a transcript. They often have the ability to customize different features enabled for different users. So zoom in functionality to adjust the content size for reading and built-in keyboard shortcuts for navigation. So let's have a look at accessibility within Moodle itself. So we have the Atto editor. So Atto is a JavaScript text editor built specifically for Moodle. The Atto text editor includes an accessibility checker and screen reader helper tools. So these are intended to help you increase the accessibility of your content. The Atto accessibility checker looks for things such as images with missing or empty alternative text, contrast of font and background colors to see if they meet the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as WCAG AA guidelines. It also checks to see if long blocks of text are broken up into headings or that tables have captions. If the tables contain merged cells, they are very difficult to navigate with screen readers, and all tables should contain rows or column headers. The screen reader helper can help to identify issues which could be encountered by students using a screen reader to access the content. The accessibility checker and the screen reader helper cannot check for all accessibility issues, but just will set you on the right pathway, but it's a really good place to start. So next we have the Brickfield Accessibility Toolkit. The Brickfield Accessibility Toolkit provides accessibility auditing, remediation of course content with an improved editing experience, and an accessible file format creator. So as a certified Moodle integration, the Brickfield Toolkit enables organizations to find issues in the content of their Moodle, fix common issues using the toolkit, and future-proof their course experience. So next now, is accessibility a legal requirement? Well, websites and apps of public sector bodies must be accessible. There are over 300,000 employees working in Ireland's public sector organisations and are among the largest employers in the state. So let's take a look at some of these benefits. So firstly, it's ethically sound. It's the right thing to do, which will give you a broader audience reach as well and increase your audience size. So before we go, I said I'd come back to these acronyms. TLDR, too long didn't read. IYKWIM, if you know what I mean. YOLO, you only live once. And the last one is NSFW, not suitable for work. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining us here at Enovation. We really appreciate you joining us and hope you learned some of the value that accessibility can bring to you and your users. Feel free to reach out to us anytime via email at info@enovation.ie. If you're interested or want to know more, we'll see you the next time.